All right, Alison, thank you for being here. For those of you that don't know, Alison is the owner of Nutrition Kitchen, which is a meal prep service here in Monmouth County that we use personally at both of our gyms that gets absolutely delicious, nutritious food delivered for our members. You are also a 3-time NCAA champion in women's hockey at Middlebury. You are currently coaching CrossFit, level 2 CrossFit coach, and current CrossFit competitor.
Yes.
So I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So before we get into a lot of the other stuff, the most pressing question I polled some of our members and our coaches that they wanted to know is how the hell do you get the overnight oats to taste so good? People have tried to recreate it. They see the ingredients right there on the label, and every single time it just doesn't work.
If I tell you, I'll have to kill you.
It might be worth it. Yeah, the rest of our members and coaches might take that sacrifice. But in all seriousness, I mean, they're delicious. I've tried to make oats before and like overnight oats, and like they're either too dry and they taste okay, or they taste okay, but the texture isn't right. And our coaches have done the same thing. They're like, all the ingredients are in here. I can make this. Or people try to do it at home. And every single time they're just like, yeah, I just ordered them again. They're just better.
Yeah, part of me loves hearing that because that's what keeps us in business.
Perfect. As we get into some of these conversations, we're going to use some words that maybe people don't understand or that we kind of gloss over or take for granted as both being fitness professionals. So one of them is just macros, which is short for macronutrients. So just fill people in. What do we mean when we talk about counting your macros or macros?
Yeah, food falls into, I think, 3 major buckets are carbs, fats, and proteins. So when we talk about tracking macros, it is about tracking how many grams of those 3 macronutrients that we consume on a daily basis.
And they're all printed kind of right on the label of each one of your meals, right? So if I order, the Southwest Burger is what's one that's this week, right? It'll tell me right on there how many carbs, proteins, fats, how many calories.
Yes, it's also searchable in MyFitnessPal. So if you are tracking your food in MyFitnessPal, you can search Nutrition Kitchen, whatever the meal name is, and it will just take those macros and calories right out of that daily log.
I know that doesn't sound like a huge feature, but it is an absolute incredible time saver because anytime that I create something from either another recipe or something that I made, most of the times I'm like, screw it. I'll just keep track of what's in there because inputting those things is actually a huge pain in the butt. So I know I'm thankful that you put those things in there, and I know our members and everybody else that uses it, and that the fact that they're in there and they're easy accessible is super helpful.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. It's to make life a little bit easier for everyone if it's something that's important to them.
Let's get into your company. So Nutrition Kitchen, how long have you been open? What was your goal getting started? Kind of where are we at now?
I started the end of 2016, which is, I just sort of realized that the other day, and it's been a long time. That's longer
than I thought, yeah.
Yeah, same. It's been really cool. A short backstory, I was working a 9 to 5. I value freedom too much. And so I ended up losing my job and I was just making money how I could. And I was at a gym. My trainer was doing a bodybuilding show and she was like, can you help meal prep for me? So I started cooking for her. One thing led to another and I was cooking for the whole gym. So I just was making money however I could. And it was through food and people kept ordering and I rented a kitchen and now here we are.
So that started at your house. Originally, you were just cranking it out from where you were at?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you've always been into health and fitness. We touched a little bit on it, like briefly there in the intro. So when you were in college, you played ice hockey? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I grew up with 3 brothers. I've been an athlete my whole life. Every season, there was a different sport. So I love being active. I love being competitive. And food fuels all of that. But from riding horses, playing soccer, playing tennis, I played golf at Middlebury as well. I used to ski race. When I found ice hockey, I just fell in love with it. And it was at a point where it's like you kind of got to pick your sport. So ice hockey was it. Got recruited to play in college. And was fortunate enough to be a part of a really incredible team at Middlebury where we won 3 NCAA ice hockey championships. My senior year, we lost in the final.
So that would have been
we came in second. So I lost my last game ever.
I know. Sometimes it's better. I know in sports that I coach, sometimes people feel better going into the 3rd and 4th place match and winning 3rd as their last match than sometimes going to the final and losing.
Yeah.
But 3 is nothing to laugh at. So what do you feel like is the main problem that your business is solving for the people that use it. So the people that are ordering food, how is it helping them on a day-to-day basis kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's convenience. People are really busy. Especially being in this area, they're all commuting to New York City for work, or they've got a household of kids and they have to go in 4 different directions all at the same time. So it's convenience. It's one less thing for you to worry about, whether it's like one less trip to the grocery store, one night that you don't have to cook. But it is really important. And people do want to look good. They want to feel good. And if you just are ordering out all the time, sometimes it's way more calories than you want to be consuming. So if you don't want to cook and you're just ordering out, it's like, oh, this isn't really what I wanted. It's better if I cook for myself, but I don't have the time. So then there's the second piece of I've made it more convenient for you, but it's also a healthier option. It's a cleaner meal and dinner or lunch that you're getting than if you were to run to the convenience store or order out from a restaurant.
Right, because for me being still involved with nutrition coaching with some of our members, it's this balance of like, hey, you can go out and make a great choice. You can go out and pick up a salad.
Yeah.
And if there's no nutrition information on that at all, they feel like they're doing the right thing. Like, oh, how could this be bad? I went out and picked up a salad. And then if you were to break it down, it could be 700 or 800 calories, and then they're not going to get the results that they're looking for. The flip side of that is you can go to a convenience store and you can pick something up that has the exact macros on it. And while that might work for a short amount of time, you're going to feel like crap. Your energy level is going to be like crap. And that was part of the reason that we ended up, we've tried other meal prep companies in the past, and why we've come to use you and we will continue to is that we do get kind of the best of both worlds. Food tastes good and it has the numbers on there, because if I'm working with clients who are paying me to give them specific numbers, how many carbs, proteins, fats, things like that to hit, and they want to make sure they're eating well, I need to make sure that that's accurate and that's on there. So, tell me, like, how did you come to that decision in terms of like listing everything on there? Because I know some places will just do it and it's just like, here are the meals. Where did that kind of come up from?
I mean, the only place that you don't know what you're consuming really is at a restaurant. But if you go to any chain restaurant, Applebee's, you name, like the menus do have a total calorie count. It might not have the macro breakdown, but you know what you're putting in your food. So for someone in a business that even in meal prep to not include the macros, it's like, but why? That's kind of what we're here for. You do know what you're putting in your food. So I think it's kind of silly to not include the macros. People that care about that, it's a great way for them to leverage your service. And if they don't care about that, then it doesn't matter. But you might as well add it. It's a value add. It's so simple. I myself, I want to look and feel the way that I want to. I like to look good. We live in a beach town, so you want to look good when you take your clothes off. So I do care about what I eat. I also really enjoy my food, and I don't want to feel like I'm on a diet. Someone just said the other day, the word die is in diet. And I couldn't really anymore. Like, I want to enjoy my food. I want to look good. I want to feel good. So how can we have the best of both worlds? I do believe that you can look and feel the way that you want to and perform the way that you want to and still enjoy your food. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So we've been able to sort of like find that middle ground simply by cooking cleaner. I'm an athlete and I make food because I love food. So I've been able to sort of find that balance. But yeah, I personally am on a high carb, high protein diet. All these people who follow keto, for example, it's like carbs are bad. That's why keto was so huge. For me, that doesn't work. I have found that if I do have a salad, I'm super bloated the next day and I just don't feel good. But if I have a bagel sandwich, I'm loving life. I enjoy it more, honestly, but my body feels better as well. So that's just, why not have it on there?
And I think it's the biggest misconception when I'm consulting with new clients is if I'm even talking to them about considering doing a nutrition program, they're like, you're just going to tell me to eat lettuce and chicken. I get it. Like, I can't do that. And it's like, no, like we can teach you how to include what you want to enjoy to eat and still get results. Like, there's a cost of doing business for everything, right?
Yeah.
You can't, I know a lot of my clients, if if they were to have a bagel every day, like that's not going to work for them, right? But hey, on a Saturday, if you account for it and you're training hard, sure, like there's no difference. But I think the biggest misconception and why people are afraid to start is the messaging and the videos and the things that they do see are on two way different sides of the spectrum, right? If you follow someone on Instagram who is a big, let's say, if it fits your macros type person, they make it look like all they do is eat Captain Crunch and like gummy worms. And you're like, well, I got to do that diet. That's awesome. And on the flip side of that, you're going to see the people who maybe are doing a bodybuilding show or a figure show who, yes, in the last maybe few weeks of their prep, it probably is steamed chicken and rice and broccoli, but they're not doing that 50 weeks out of the year, right? Maybe for the last 8 to 12 weeks of their prep, it needs to be that tight. And it's really not because that's any better or worse. It's just, it's the only way that you can fit that number of calories. And at that point is eliminating those other things. So for us, it's really about showing them like, hey, like you can do this can work, but there needs to be some sort of accounting.
Yeah.
You can't, the biggest phrase that works for us to explain to people is that you can have anything that you want. You just can't have everything that you want. So if you want the freedom to enjoy, any type of food that you'd like, well, then we need the discipline to measure and keep a track of what is actually coming in and out. If you don't want to have to weigh, measure, do any of those things, well, then we might have to look at eliminating certain groups of foods because it makes it easier to kind of maintain that balance.
Yeah. Well, what you're hitting on too, I shared the other day on a reel on my Instagram, like, why are macros so great? It's a formula for you to achieve your goals. I'm not telling you that you have to track your food or that you need to hit certain macros. This is about what you said you wanted. And we are here to support you to get there. If you don't care, great, go live your life. It's totally fine. We're only emphasizing that you said you wanted change. You said that you had goals, like performance-wise, physically, whatever the scale says or how you look in the mirror. And that's why it's important. If you don't have those things, then you're free to do what you want. But it is important to say that, yes, if you have any desire to achieve a certain goal, macros, tracking your food, a consistent gym routine, this is how we're going to support you to get there.
So for people that are kind of like on the fence, right? Because you and I had a quick discussion before we started recording that these things kind of go seasonally for you, right? What's the message, or how do you communicate to the people that, because I've been there myself, like, I can do this. I don't need this meal prep service. Like I can cook. Like how do we get that person to take that step or realize what's the importance of using a service like yours?
Well, I think fortunately, actually, yes, Nutrition Kitchen does have a seasonal flow and a busy season and a slow season. Thankfully, a lot of people have discovered that the Nutrition Kitchen meals truly just are part of their lifestyle. It is not a specific diet. I am not asking you to eliminate certain foods. The tagline is good, clean food. It's a complete meal. It's good food. It's clean food. It's real food. And it has become a lifestyle for people. It is not a diet. It's something that you truly can do week in and week out. And when people want to diet, that's when it becomes seasonal. That's when it's inconsistent. And of course, you're going to have people who, oh my gosh, it's summer, it's time to get in shape. And so they'll come back into the fold. And then maybe when they hit their goals, they're done. They go back to doing what they always did. And then they come back around because it's a cycle. Other people, I've had people ordering for 6 years, week in and week out. And that's fortunately why I do have a business. Same thing with you. It's like the people keep coming back. And if it weren't for them, then I wouldn't be here right now doing what I'm doing. So we have figured out a way where people can have the convenience, enjoy their food, have a cleaner style without having to cook, and again, not feel like they're sacrificing flavor.
So for me, it's like, I'm not eating vegetables unless I order them from you.
Yeah.
Because
Do you think people need them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more of just a laziness or inconvenience factor, right? I'm very busy. Even if I'm following a plan where I'm trying to hit a specific number of, carbs, proteins, fats, whatever, I'm very much like my dinner would end up being like chicken and rice because like, oh, that hits the numbers. All right, I'm going to move on. But then eventually you're like, this sucks. Like, so having things that have the numbers on them, have them done. I'm getting servings of vegetables that I wouldn't otherwise get in is super convenient because I'm not going to do it. Right?
What I'm hearing from you as well is that you need a little variety.
Yes.
Everyone needs variety in order to achieve their goals, like variety in the gym, variety on your plate. It's literally the spice of life. Like you get bored doing the same thing day after day.
So how often does the menu change? Like, do you change it weekly, monthly? What does that look like for people? Because I know we didn't really touch on like how your business actually operates. So let's start with that. Like on if someone wanted to start kind of ordering, what does that look like? And then how often does the menu change?
Yeah. So Tuesday, a new menu goes up. You have until Friday at midnight to order. We're cooking fresh on Saturdays and Sundays, fresh, because the menu changes weekly. So we cannot reuse, repurpose anything. Gets delivered Sunday and you've got your food for the whole week. So we partner up with gyms like Aspire to drop off the food Sunday night. So if you have a 5 a.m., a 6 a.m., 7 a.m. class or training session, your food is right there in the gym. And food and fitness goes hand in hand. So it is important to me to partner with gyms specifically. It gets those people into the door, never miss a Monday, and you've got your food for the week. Just heat it up in the microwave and you're good to go.
So it's twofold for me because there's me personally. I personally order the food for me and my wife because now we have a baby. Things are crazy. Schedule's tough. And the reminder text that I get Friday at 8 o'clock sometimes, like, you didn't order. And so my problem is remembering to order. But it's twofold. You know, for me personally, it helps actually using the service. But then for me as the business owner, it helps us retain clients much longer, right?
That's my hope, honestly.
If, you know, so I don't want to just focus on the business on, you know, from an individual aspect, but for other gym owners that may or may not, you know, listen to this podcast that are either locally or not, I'd highly recommend finding either using Alison, obviously, if you're in New Jersey, but if you're listening from somewhere else, having a meal prep company can severely impact the results that your clients are going to get. You know, our most successful clients are ones that are following some sort of nutrition program. Doesn't mean they have to be counting their macros. Some of them might just be focused on having a protein, a carb, and a vegetable at every meal, which I would say 90% of your meals are in some sort of format like that, right? So it helps both. From a business standpoint, it helps us keep our members engaged because they're coming to the gym to pick up their food. It keeps it top of mind. And then for me personally, I enjoy using it. So
yeah, it's a value add, right? So it's just another service that your gym offers. It is a full team and support system for them to reach their goals, be the best versions of themselves. You cannot outwork a bad diet. So if you're able to clean it up a little bit, and here's the suggestion of how, you know, order 2 meals, see how it works. Maybe I'm able to inspire them to modify their portion sizes or to try something new in the kitchen in terms of their own cooking and flavor profiles. There's a lot of ways, and it's one way to help them and support them. But yeah, that's why I like partnering up with gyms. Like, get them in there, get in the door. I know some people who you don't have to be a member to pick up Nutrition Kitchen at your gym or any of them. It's my hope as well to bring people in. Again, it is a true partnership. Like, food and fitness goes hand in hand. And it is just a way to, I feel like, reach your potential when you can find that formula. It's also just, I mean, all the emotional stress relievers and mental benefits of working out, of like, I'm an athlete. So it's like, get to the gym, just do it. Like, you won't regret it. There's never a workout that you do that you regret that you did.
Funny side story. We almost gave away your food to someone from DoorDash one time because there's a bagel store right next to our gym in Rumson. And like, people, like, usually the coaches will know, like, they'll come in and be like, they'll say like, oh, DoorDash. I'm like, oh, next door, like, go ahead. Well, this one particular person just said they were here for food, and he was pointed to the refrigerator. So luckily they didn't leave with the food, because that would have been very confusing if someone DoorDashed a bagel and then got, like, you know, a chicken salad with some sauce. They could come deliver to their house. But so hopefully that doesn't happen. But moving forward from there, tell me, like you said, you're still competing now. So what are you doing now? I know you're a level 2 CrossFit coach.
Yes.
How often do you coach currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I coach at Power Pack CrossFit in Atlantic Highlands. I've been there for 7 years now. CrossFit is the perfect blend of just variety. The weightlifting, the Metcons. I mean, I love it. Like, you can never get bored. The added skills of just the gymnastics, the handstand walking, all of it. So you can look at it and be like, wow, that's crazy. I'm an athlete. I'm competitive. I like to push my body and see what I'm capable of. Last year, I taught myself 2 skills in particular, the ring muscle up and handstand walks. And I'm closing out my 38th year. So I never, how many new things do we learn as adults? Not a lot. So when I looked back and I was like, wait, where did my fitness go and how did my training pay off this year? Did I get any better? And of course, it's so easy to track results by numbers. What's my pant size? How do I look in the mirror? What does the scale say? How much weight am I lifting? But to look at results of like, what did I learn? How did I get better? And CrossFit for me provides that outlet of pushing limits on a variety of levels. It's not just like, kettlebell swings and bicep curls. Yeah. And it can be. It's all of those things, which I really enjoy. So I'm there Monday to Friday. I coach on Tuesdays. I do some of the local CrossFit comps. And it's like
You're doing the open now though, right?
I'm doing the open. And it's like signing up for a 5K or a half marathon or a marathon. It's something that you have on the schedule, gets you out of your comfort zone, gets you into the gym. I committed to this, and it's like I got to do the work.
All right. So in general, what is your, if you had to sum up your approach to nutrition in 1 or 2 sentences to clearly get that across to someone, what's your opinion? What's your kind of philosophy, around it?
Ooh, nutrition. In order to, I guess we're talking about someone that's like, what do you stick to? It's consistency and enjoyment. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to keep doing it. So that's definitely my take towards food as well. That's why the menu changes every week. I can't eat the same thing day in and day out. The honey sriracha meatballs are my absolute favorite. I'm good for 5 days.
Yeah, I have a little. I sigh every time they're not on the menu because those are probably everybody's favorite, right?
Yes, yeah, they're up there. And so, but then the next week you've got the basil pesto meatballs, and I'm all about them for 5 days, and then I need to change it again. So the consistency part is turkey meatballs, healthy meal. The enjoyment factor is the rotation of flavors.
Sure.
So it's like, it keeps me on track there, and I get to keep enjoying my food. And again, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, if I'm not enjoying what I'm eating, then why would you do it?
Yeah. And that goes for us as well in terms of like how we go about coaching individual clients on their nutrition, because people will either read something that we wrote or see what we might be doing with one client, and they're like, well, I don't want to do nutrition because I don't want to count my macros. And it's like, all right, that's one tool.
Why
right?
Though?
If you don't,
I got to challenge that.
Yeah, that's fair. So go ahead.
Why not track it from the client? I definitely play that hard. Like, well, tell me why you won't. What are you afraid of learning?
I think the feedback, so that's a great question. I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket. What are you afraid of learning? I'll use that. So I think most people that I've interacted with or coached it's just overwhelm, right? So it's not that they don't feel like, because there was a big pushback on it recently in terms of like people saying like it creates disordered eating and blah, blah. I'm like, you count how much money you make, right? And you count how much you spend, hopefully. Some people don't, and they have problems too. So the idea isn't new, tracking what goes in and out. But I think a lot of times people, if they're, I'm giving a talk coming up on different personality types, and there's people that are interested in how things make them feel in relationships. And then there's people who are interested in how things add up and what their use is for them, right? So the people that are like myself, or it sounds like you as well, that are more interested in how things work and how are they useful to them, have no problem saying like, oh, I'll count macros. That sounds fun, right? When people's personality type are more emotional or relationship based, they're like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to have to do that. It doesn't make either one necessarily right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, for this person to get them there, and this is usually how I end up there. Okay, perfect. We're going to do it your way for 6 weeks. I'm going to give you some guidelines. Sometimes we'll just use like a plate. Like, hey, make half of it vegetables, a quarter of it protein, a quarter of it some sort of starch. If you did that 3 times a day and that's all you're doing, you'd probably make progress depending on where you're at. If someone comes in and they're super lean or they're training 4 or 5 days a week, estimating things, they're probably past that. Mm-hmm. But for the average person just starting, maybe that gets them, a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
Eventually they get stuck. And then we say, okay, well, we've exhausted this. So how about for like 3 or 4 weeks, we just try this.
Yeah.
And then when they do it, I've had this with a client actually just recently. We started that same way. Hey, we're going to start with some guidelines in the beginning. Did it, made some improvement, but then quickly kind of got stuck. And it's all the same common mistakes, right? I didn't know 3 tablespoons of olive oil was 45 grams of fat. I didn't know that I was counting peanut butter as my protein. So on that realm, like what are some of these other common things that you see people just kind of get wrong or mess up with their nutrition?
Yeah. So I don't deal with people directly. Mm-hmm. I'm in the kitchen, I send the food out, and then they're on their own. Of course, I am viewed as an expert in nutrition. Like I have plenty of experience. I have my health coaching certification and I can certainly guide them and educate them to a degree, but I don't have the conversations that you get to have with clients one-on-one to really hear the struggles. I wanted to go back to something you had said with the macros and it creating eating disorders there's a whole bunch of stuff we could address there. And I see both sides. Absolutely. I'm actually someone that did have an eating disorder in college. And I think a lot of women in their, teens and early 20s, maybe late 20s, even now, there's so many people that struggle with eating. So define eating disorder and disordered eating. It's going to make you feel some type of way, tracking your food. You can become so obsessive with it and it might trigger you in the wrong way. I remember when I first started tracking macros, it did trigger me. You're so obsessive and the success and feeling like you're successful or failing if you're off by a couple of grams could be dangerous. But at the same time, if you have a support system and you have an accountability coach or a nutrition coach or a trainer that can sort of talk you off the ledge and support you through it, it could completely be life-changing for them. So the first time I started tracking, it didn't work for me. I don't think I was in the right headspace. I didn't have the right focus or goals or vision, where this next time I started tracking, probably a year or 2 later, I was at a spot in my life where I was coaching CrossFit full time. I was running a meal prep business and I was like, I need to take my life back. I had lost my brother like 3 years prior. My friends had gone through some really tough stuff and I was just like, it's time to focus on me. And macros allowed me to do that. It gave me something to work towards and I wanted to be my brand. I wanted to be like, look, my food is clean. It's going to help you lean out. It's going to help you stay athletic. It's going to help you look and feel the way you want to feel. And how could I say that if I didn't really put it to the test? So I went all in for myself. And I was in a place of like, okay, these are my goals and this is how I'm going to achieve it. These are my macros. This is how many grams of carbs, fats, and proteins that I get to eat. And if I do this consistently and I'm able to enjoy the process as well, I'm going to look and feel the way that I want to feel, prove to people that like this does work. And tracking was no longer triggering. It was actually really empowering because I was in complete control of the things that I wanted to be doing. And it taught me a lot. If you realize there's 3 buckets that food can fall in: carbs, fats, proteins. That's it. Carrots, it's a carb. Mm-hmm. It's a vegetable, but what kind? Apples, carbs. It's a fruit. It's a fuel. Bagels, carb. Pasta, carb. Peanut butter, it's a fat with a little bit of protein. It's not a protein. Mm-hmm. Egg, same thing. So once you start to understand food and where does it fit on my plate of proteins and carbs and fats, you can make better decisions for yourself because you have new knowledge. And that's all tracking really is. I love the whole, like, do you count your money? Like, I'm keeping that one in my back pocket. That's a great one. But yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's hard. People don't like to do hard things. And
it's extra work. Like, it's not.
Food is vulnerable.
It's not easy.
It's very vulnerable. Like, you're going to see what I'm eating. You're going to see that I have like 3 chocolate chip cookies every single night. And you're going to tell me I can't have that. And I don't want that because it's change, and that's scary.
And that's how we try to take that conversation instead of like, and that's because their perception is I can't have that. The reality is you can have that, but log it first and then see what the rest of your day then has to look like. Because the piece that the most people don't get from Instagram is, if that person's having, if they're putting a picture up that they, eat, Captain Crunch cereal every night, that probably means that their breakfast was egg whites and that was it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the only way that you're going to hit those numbers and still include those foods is with a little bit of a saccharide somewhere. But if it's worth it to you, if it fits one thing I go over with clients is like, what are their values around food and nutrition, right? If you have, let's say you have kids that are, 5 and 6 years old. If part of your value system is like, I don't want to have to worry about if they want to get ice cream on Saturday, that I can't just go and have it. Okay, cool. With that information, how do we tweak your plan elsewhere so that that's not an issue? Because it's not free. Just don't worry about it. And it's like, well, if your goal is also to make progress, there has to be some accounting for it. But it's the whole Jocko quote. It's just discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
If you can have the discipline to measure and keep track of these things, you get the freedom to enjoy things that other people don't necessarily have control over. So as long as you're cool with it, I want to go way back, right? So what gave you the, because I think, truly, like you're saying, getting into the semantics of things, truly disordered eating, and especially with female athletics, is a huge topic. Not what we, decided to sit down and talk about today, but as long as you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
What was your experience with that? How did you, get from that point where, hey, this is a totally negative thing for you, thoughts, concerns, emotions around food, to now like it's essentially your life, right?
Yeah.
Like what was that process?
So my belief is most things that seem out of control in our lives stem from something else. So what is that stressor? What is it that you're trying to control or compensate for? I was in college. I was a junior and I was now upperclassman, thinking that I've finally got it all figured out. These are going to be the best years of my life. School's really hard. Middlebury is no joke. And I just felt a little lost. I don't know. I couldn't answer why. And for whatever reason, food became a control. It wasn't necessarily about looks, but that was a perk of leaning out and looking really strong and looking really good. It was like, oh, this is great. And so, becoming so obsessive about food. But when you get to that point too, you start to, the consequences, you can't enjoy hanging out with your friends in that regard. Food takes over. It takes you over your whole life. And then obviously the health consequences of not being fueled, not being healthy. You're too skinny, your body doesn't have the calories, there's no nutrients. And then you do the whole therapy thing, you have all the conversations and you kind of go through the motions, but you need to be at a place in your life where you're ready to just overcome it. You need to have the goals and the focus and the bigger picture of what do I want for myself? What is important to me? To finally, after years of living through it, realize I actually am in control all of the time. I don't have to be so obsessive about food. But I also think that was a big motivator. Women especially are afraid of food. Women are afraid of carbs. There's a lot of pressure and societal pressure. You look on social media and the filters and the Botox and the makeup. It's just like, what is real? And the pressure to look a certain way and like keep up with the Joneses in that regard, it's really hard. So of course we're constantly being scrutinized and judged physically. Like, we're in the fitness space. Like, we're here to help you, make you look good. It goes so far beyond that. But to be able to support women in particular, of teaching them like a new way to look at food and really to change like clean eating culture. It doesn't have to be a salad. I'm not asking you to have steamed broccoli and vegetables only, or even just like plain boiled chicken. It doesn't have to be this way. You can look and feel the way that you want to and still enjoy your food. It doesn't have to be a nutrition kitchen. It could be like, find that balance for you where you can just enjoy your life and not have to be so obsessive about one thing. So yeah, it's about like having goals, having a vision, having a support team to like get you where you need to go so that they can sort of talk you off the ledge.
So what was how did you, because you said that you had this negative experience before, but then you went back to it, like what gave you the confidence or like the wherewithal to be like, all right, you know what, I'm going to try this again. Right? Like, was there a coach that you were working with? Like, because you mentioned support team. Like, was there something that made that difference where you're like, no, like this time around is going to be different, and now this is how I'm going to kind of operate going forward?
Some of it was just where I was at in my life. Like, I was emotionally and mentally ready to try it. I mean, I think all of us have counted calories. Calories in equals calories out. Like, it is a thing. And this was diving even deeper into that, very specifically of this is what you, like how you can eat. So I think I was also curious for a new challenge. Like, counting calories was boring. Macros can be very overwhelming because it is really hard to figure out at first of like, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing so well and I blew my carbs out of the like way out today by 50 to 75 grams and I only ate 80 grams of protein. It's like I need these to change. And so it's about learning. It's about just like educating yourself and learning more. And if you're able to consistently show up for yourself like that, you start to realize like, oh, I don't feel as just like bloated and gross or sluggish. Like, when I do have more carbs and protein and less fats, like I just feel better. I don't hit that 3:30 in the afternoon wall because I haven't eaten all day. I'm constantly eating throughout the day because there's no way I can eat all of this food between 4 and when I go to bed in order to hit my macros. So it retrains you, like it changes your relationship with food. And that I was curious about. But again, like, how could I support people through this if I hadn't done it myself?
And I think the interesting to me is like I'm a big fan of like some Stoicism principles, and one of them is temperance. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because like where you've gotten to a point now is what it means to actually have true control over something, right? There are certain people in various situations where, hey, I can't deal with that at all because if I do, then I'm going to go down this path, and that's not bad, right? But what I'm saying is like true temperance is like, no, like, because to have total control means I can still do this, and now it doesn't lead me anywhere. I'm now fully in control, right? Because if you were just like, screw it, I'm never gonna, I can't concentrate on food or counting anything ever again, well then technically at that point it still has some control over you, right? The fact that you're the one holding the reins and driving how this thing is going is kind of like not everybody gets there, and that's okay, is kind of like the umpteenth level of control, because now not only are you able to interact with these things, but now you're using it to actually improve instead of it just being a fight. Yeah.
It's also, I want to be curious as to why. Why is it triggering you? Why can't you do this? What is it? Like, what is your resistance? Let's talk about that. And I think those conversations, and you're fortunate enough to be in a position like one-on-one with people and your coaches to be able to support people. Like, tell me more about what's coming up for you around food. And like, why do you eat? I'm curious your answer to this. Like, why do you eat?
Why do I eat?
Yeah. Besides having to, like we have to survive, but why do you eat?
Some days it's just because I have to and I have to move on to the next thing. So that's why having something convenient that I know, like if I were to go back to what my values are, right? I still count and measure my food, right? If I go to a system that's just trying to be intuitive, then my guard kind of gets let down and then I'll go further away to where now I'm not acting in a way that supports those values of being healthy, having energy, being, none of my grandparents have lived very, long lives. So, what is it that I can do to try and have a longer life? And longevity is super important. Looking good in summer is obviously one piece of that, but that was never going to be enough for me. I've done a bodybuilding show in the past and it was the most miserable, like almost like half a year in my life.
Yeah.
Like if you ask the people that were, cause it doesn't mean that I didn't do it and I didn't, learn from the process, but because it didn't fit, like people that do that ongoingly are a special breed of person. If you're doing that ongoingly for like your livelihood, then you obviously enjoy it. And that's part of your value system. So that's why I don't want to say it comes easy, but it comes easier for that person.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just about like can I be the brand, right? Because there's been times where I certainly haven't been. And, because life gets busy. Like after my daughter was born, I think I put on maybe 20 pounds because it was just like, I'm up at 3 a.m. I'll just eat whatever. Like, oh, it's fine. Not working out as much. And then it was like, okay, once things kind of got solidified and back down, kind of back on track. And that gave me more empathy for people that I've worked with in the past because until that point, you're just kind of like, what do you mean? Just nap when the kids nap, make your food, whatever, so.
I think that's important though. Like that is life. It ebbs and flows. There's going to be ups and downs. So if you can stay consistent with certain healthy habits, it's going to help carry you through those really stressful times or whatever life kind of throws at you. If you can lean on, that routine and what systems do you have in place where you're not going to completely jump off the deep end and all of your efforts and all of the work that you just put in the last 10 weeks goes to shit.
Yeah, because I think a common area that people get tripped up on is like there's extremes in everything, right? But then I also think the message of just balance is kind of out of whack for some people too, right?
It's hard.
If we come in and we do someone's initial intake and they're maybe 10 or 15% body fat higher than what they should be from a health and longevity standpoint. I don't care what they look like. It has nothing to, if that's their goal, then great, we'll talk about that. But I'm just talking about from a health perspective. It's like, hey, the only way to get back into balance is to maybe have a little bit of extra focus here for the next 8 to 12 weeks, because let's face it, for the last maybe 8 to 12 months, we've been living out of balance the other way. So if I'm fine with balance, but right now there is so much weight on this side of the bar that to get back to even, we need to start working on this side. So I think all of those things together where people kind of reach some stumbling blocks with nutrition, or there's so much information, right? And like you're saying with Instagram, Facebook, all these different things. So what would your message kind of be like speaking to, let's just continue on the same kind of thread, like to women in general that are apprehensive about starting to dial in their nutrition, or they've done 17 different things before. They've done keto, paleo, intermittent fasting. They've done all these things and they just like haven't found something that has stuck for them.
Mm-hmm.
What would your kind of advice to be if they were kind of on the fence of like, I've done this 100 times, nothing works,
Yeah. You need to have a vision. What is the big picture? Just trying to eat healthy. I need to eat healthy. I need to be clean. Summer's coming. It's too chaotic. You're not really connected to it. Like, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Because then it is easier to make better decisions for yourself that align with your values and your goals. What is the whole purpose of getting healthy? Because again, maybe it's not important to you, and then you truly can eat whatever you want, and what happens, and you look how you look. But if it is really important to you and it's part of your value system to be healthy, set an example, be able to stay active with my kids and be independent, sidebar, it's like in the gym, full range of motion, you got to get to the bottom of a squat. If you plan on living on your own and going to the bathroom without any assistance, like I need healthy joints, give me that full range of motion. And it's that whole picture, like what is your why? And that will help you just stay focused to be like, you know what? I'm not going to have that glass of wine tonight. I'm going to have it on Friday and Saturday. I don't need it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Same thing with the desserts. Like we're not saying you can't have it. Yes, that's also kind of why I love macros. It gives you those bumpers to say, if I do veer off course, like am I still in the lane? As opposed to, no, I can't have that because that's really restrictive and that's really triggering. Just like figure out why you're doing this. What is the whole purpose? And then we can remind you in those moments when you are feeling like you're lacking motivation to be like, well, you said that you wanted this because your grandkids have this coming up and you want to be able to do that with them. When you can like hold the mirror up for someone and say, like, this isn't about what I'm telling you or what I want for you. This is what you said you wanted, and I'm just here to support you to do that.
Perfect. So one thing I think will be super helpful for a lot of, I would say in our gyms, it's 75-25 female to male.
Wow.
And I think that's probably pretty consistent maybe in training, in like personal training gyms. I not everywhere, but I know some other people that I network with and meet with, that tends to be the ratio. So I think for context, as long as you're comfortable, like when I'm coaching women and sometimes when they see what their initial calorie recommendation might be, they're like, holy shit, there's no way I could eat that amount of food.
That's a lot, you mean.
And exactly.
Yeah.
So for reference, as long as you're cool, what are your, like, how many calories, like grams, proteins, fat, what's your general setup, so that I know it'd be helpful for our clients to hear what is, someone who's fit, living the lifestyle and is doing, these things. What does that look like for them? It doesn't mean it's going to translate 1-to-1. Obviously, if you're doing CrossFit, 17 times a week and teaching and doing all these things, your needs might be a little bit higher, but I still think from a reference point, it'll be good perspective.
So I actually think my macros are pretty low. Last year, I worked with a health coach because all coaches need coaches.
I have one, so it's awesome.
And my macros, I was trying to lose weight. Holidays, winter, sweatshirts, I'd just gotten it was bulking season.
Yeah.
And I was ready to just lean out. So I was working with someone and I was on 175 grams of carbs, about 53 grams of fat, and 155 grams of protein. Right. So it puts me at 1,800 calories. When I'm training a little bit more, I'll up my carbs a little bit. I tend to take the liberty of going over on my protein because yes, it's more calories, but it's like the good kind, and my body needs it. It also gives me that little bit of freedom to be like, you know what, I am hungry. Let me add some more protein onto my plate.
So the important thing there is hey, if you're hungry or if you feel like I need more, the first choice is hey, what could I add that is some more protein? What are, if you were in that situation, what are some things that you would kind of grab?
So I have Nutrition Kitchen bulk proteins. I had my regular turkey burger meal last night and I had the bulk protein as well. And I just added more onto it.
So for reference, the bulk stuff, I think this was the first week. I think I might have ordered it 1 or 2 times before, but I'm always late and you take care of me if I'm, and if you can just order. So if there's a specific item that you like, hey, I really like the, the sriracha meatballs or whatever. Yeah. You can just order bulk 30 of them if you want. And just then you can just, if you want to make some rice and put them over that, you can have them separately. Yeah.
It's a way of being in total control of your food if you are following a specific diet, but it's a nice quick way to have a family dinner because the protein's the hardest part. I find that actually people struggle with that the most. They know how to handle the sides. They don't know how to cook meat. Chicken, turkey, steak, they just don't know how to cook protein. So we've got that taken care of you.
Yeah, because I know when I ask people, they're all right, what would you like? When we're going through stuff, and I just hate chicken. I'm like, all right, well, tell me what do you how do you cook it? I just put it in the oven and I just bake it for it or whatever. I'm so you don't sear it or do anything. So no season. No. I'm well, yeah, it's gonna taste like crap. I think that I always said if we had an unlimited resource in terms of funds, just as there's a strength class or, there's CrossFit class at 9 a.m., there should be cooking class at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Because most people have no idea, unless it's something that's totally not going to fit with what their goals are, how to make things that, you know, are still congruent with their goals taste good. So I still think, for reference, like, you know, most females are like, well, I know what I have to do. I just need to eat 1,200 calories and just like,
oh, it's so
and
sad.
like, and they assume that that's what they need to be doing to eat. So like, you know, listen, if you're in a phase for yourself where you're leaning out in 1,800, I think most women that I consult with initially would still be like, oh my God, I don't know how I could eat that much food. So if for someone who's kind of getting started, what are some of your tips in terms of like, if that seems overwhelming, like getting them to kind of ease into that?
So this is where tracking of any kind, we'll just call it counting calories, because macros can be really intense, and now we're those people. But just count your calories. It's just data so that you understand where you're at and then what you can change. People think if I don't eat or I eat less, then I'm naturally going to lose weight.
It's got to be better.
Your body is built to survive. Our brains know, like, I can walk across the street and go to the convenience store and there's food that's available. My body doesn't know that. It is wired for survival. So if I don't feed it, then it's going to go into starvation mode and survival mode. So whatever I do give it, it's going to store because it doesn't know when it's going to get fed again. While I know I'm just running around, I'll grab a muffin at the coffee shop, and intellectually it's like, yes, there's food available. My body doesn't know that. So when you fast all day and then only eat a little bit, and you think like, this is great, I only had 600 calories today, I'm going to be losing weight in no time and look great for summer, you've just stored it away for energy later. But if you can consistently fuel your body and eat throughout the day, then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't need to be so scared. I don't need to survive. I know I'm constantly getting nutrients and calories and energy, and that's when your metabolism starts working. So just little by little throughout the day, like if you can eat, that's when you, everyone's like, I have a slow metabolism. Well, yeah, because you don't use it.
Yeah, it's because, and I think the biggest point on that people don't understand is that even if you could mentally will yourself to just eat 1,000 calories a day, like, you would lose weight, but predominantly it'll probably be from muscle. So you're not going to necessarily, if your goal was aesthetically driven, you're not going to necessarily look any better. And then B, it will only last for a very short period of time, because to your point, our bodies are set up to, you know, survive. So all you would know if when they do this, like in lab settings and studies, if I just started to track how active you are, if you were normally someone who moves around a lot and burns a ton of calories moving around, your body's just going to slow everything else down to meet that. So you'll stop, you know, as we sit here and move around in our seat, or how many steps you get up and walk around, or mannerisms that you make, your body will just adjust. So it's really kind of a fool's errand to continue, because people are thinking, well, if Brian told me to eat 1,800 calories, 1,400's got to be better. Yeah. And if 1,400 is better, then 1,000's better.
Right. So this is where people go, they do find themselves stuck in a cycle, right? I'm sure everyone can relate to doing a diet and it working and losing weight. And then they come off of it and they balloon right back within 2 weeks, 14 days, all of their work for the last 14 weeks is for nothing, because your body isn't in a place to be able to function properly. It's starving. And so now you come off of that diet and it's just going to store everything, where we are trying to support people to make lifestyle changes. And that is what's going to be sustainable for you to maintain. Like, yes, you might need to clean things up for a short period of time temporarily to like create some momentum and get things going in the right direction. But at the end of the day, this is about lifestyle changes and habits for longevity. And how do we stay sustainable with that? It's consistency and the enjoyment piece. Like, do what you like and find what's going to allow you to get those results. It is not just the next 12 weeks of my life and then it all goes out the window and I've got to come back to you in January and do it all over again until May, and then I'm on my own, and then, hey Brian, it's me again.
Yeah, and like I've never had someone in a consult come in and go like, hey Brian, I'm really just looking to be weaker and a little bit more tired. Like, that's not their goal. Yeah. So it's like, even if you could do that, that would be inevitably where you end up. And then like, I think, what did you push jerk at one point? 185? Maybe even more. I don't
No,
wanna
way
insult
more
you.
than that.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you? Was it push press 185 then?
I can push press 185.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would imagine only eating 1,000 calories a day. That's not happening. So even if you were to do that, your workouts are going to suffer. So now if you were not, I'm certainly opposed to tracking how many calories you burn in a workout because it's useless, but just to use it as an example, if you were able to put forth an effort in those workouts that was burning, let's say 400 calories, but now you're tired, you have no energy, and now you are only putting out 200. Well, now all we're doing is everything is going backwards, and it just becomes another cycle of this is not working. And then you're like, screw it, I'm just going to go eat whatever I want because this doesn't work anyway.
I would really love for people to be able to somehow have more self-awareness around how they feel. So just on Monday, I had an event. I was way off my routine. I did not really eat all day. And I went to the gym and I hit a lift that I should be able to hit, no matter how I feel. And it was it was like a 1 rep max for the day. I actually just posted on my Instagram story and I was just like, yep, nope, that's it. That's all I got. And I'm competitive. I know what I am capable of and I know what I should be able to do. And when I can't do that, I know in the back of my head, if I had eaten today and if I had hit my macros the last few days, this would not be the case right now. I do care about results. And if I'm able to work out the way that I want to work out, then I look the way that I want to look, but I also just feel better in my own skin. And so if I want to feel the way that I want to feel, that means I need to work out Monday to Friday the way that I want to, which also means I need to support myself to be able to do the things that I want to in the gym, which means I need to sleep right, I need to get enough sleep, and I need to eat.
So, and that's another, as kind of like a final point, that's the other reason that we want people to journal in one way or another, whether they do that digitally or handwritten, their food and how they feel, because what we're trying to point out, it's like, hey, on Tuesday where you felt like you needed a Snickers at 11:30 at night, did you notice that your food log, you didn't eat lunch or these type of things? So it's pointing out to them that hey, did you notice how when you felt like you had this craving, it was because these things happened during the day?
Right.
Or did you notice when you were achy or tired and your workout stunk, that it was because you were way under on your calories or you had 7 glasses of wine? Some things are more obvious than others, but it's trying to get them to appreciate that there's a cause and effect to these things. And yes, hitting your macros one day, probably not going to make you feel that much awesome the next day. But if you can do it, 90% of the time, for a few days in a row, yes, you can start to feel different. Your workouts feel better. You sleep better. When you sleep better, you can train harder. When you can train harder, you're going to look better and feel better. So, from a consistency standpoint, because that was your kind of main topic, right? Or your main point, how accurate are you being with those? Do you hit them exactly every day? Is there a range?
It depends. It depends what I have coming up. So in January, I went to Miami for a team CrossFit competition. I wanted to carry my weight for my team. I wanted to be able to perform the way that I knew that I could, but also the way that they needed me to. So I was focused, and I'm hitting them within 5 to 10 grams.
Right.
And I will let myself, I'm typically on the over instead of the under, because I don't want to undereat. So I typically go over. Since middle of January, it's been intuitive eating. I'll track here and there. I'll track most of my food throughout the day, and then maybe dinner, I kind of do whatever. I've been doing it long enough that I know what I need. But I let myself live too. I've certainly been having plenty of cinnamon buns in the last couple of days because it's balance and it's life and it can't all be restrictive. But I know that if I'm on most of the time, I hate using food as a reward, but it's life enjoyment. Sure. It's kind of let's go do this thing. And that way it's you remove the I can't have this. It's I'll have it on a different day.
Sure.
I don't need it right now.
And you got to that point over, probably years of doing it and really practicing it to where it's someone who can play the guitar really well probably doesn't need to look at the music, right? Because they've done it for however many years.
Yeah.
And it's like, but when someone's first starting, they probably need the sheet music right in front of them. And they're like, okay, that has 10 grams of protein. And yeah, it's a little bit monotonous and it's a little bit of work. But the reason for that is that there's this light at the end where now someone can get to where you're at now to say, I know what 30 grams of protein looks like on a plate. I know what 45 grams of protein, I know a cup of rice has 40 grams of carbs. So you can kind of like eyeball it and get from there.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it really is it is about people looking and feeling their best, achieving your goals, having a support system to get there. But it doesn't have to be so daunting and scary to try something new and make all these changes. Like tiny tweaks do lead to really big results. And if you can just consistently make those like little changes where it's not so hard, you might find yourself in a completely different place like 6 months from now.
All right, Allison. So this was a lot of fun. I feel like there are a lot of good tips for people out there. It'd be good information for people to kind of learn, move forward with their own fitness and nutrition journey. So before we sign off, where can people find you?
I live on Instagram. So personal account is Alison Nutrition Kitchen and the business is Nutrition Kitch.
Perfect.